Welcome to episode 26 of Knittings and Sewings, a podcast about all things knitting, sewing, spinning, weaving, and anything else I get up to, often crochet and other things as well. Wanted to welcome you back. It's been a few weeks, and we now are into the beginning of spring. But it's that time of year in early March where it's really up and down in weather, and it's kind of lying in the land type up and down. So Walter's now wearing his Royals jersey. And so anyway, we are really looking forward to spring, and Wally and I took a really long walk today. He enjoyed walking really far and getting to the park. And so it's just that time of year where you can't help but be a little bit more happier and chipper and have a spring in your step. And as of, I think the next week or two, we're going to have daylight savings time. And I know some people aren't fond of it, but one thing I do like is that I get more time in the evening after work, because I, get home after work. It's often dark at this point, but so I can't do much outside. And I love to be outside doing my crafting. So I'm going to be really happy to be able to once again be outside and do some things outside in the fresh air. So it's really getting to be that time of year, and I'm wearing a sweater today that I did not make myself. This is one I bought at a thrift store. One of my hobbies aside from crafting is thrift storing, and my grandmother and I, my mom, all three generations, used to be 4 generations of us. When we were all together on Saturday, we would go thrift storing each week. So this is one that I actually picked up at a time thrift store mission with my grandmother Fern, and she found this particular one, I believe. She picked it out, and so it has a lot of little ladybugs embossed on the sweater. So I really like this, and it just makes me in a cheerful mood, and I often get stopped and asked about it by people admiring. It's just one of those cute little fun wears that you can wear in the spring. So let's get started by talking about some of the things I've been up to in the last 3 weeks. First of all, I'm going to talk about a sweater project that I've been working on pretty constantly for the past 3 weeks. I'm not finished with it yet, but almost. I have the body done. This is called the Tubular Turtleneck, and I'll put a link up to the pattern. It has, as you can see, the plain pink turtleneck and a mixture of plain pink with a carry-along mohair, mock mohair fiber with it through the body of the sweater, and then at the very end of the cuffs on the sleeves, I'm going to, here's the sleeve that I have almost finished. I'm going to have the very cuff be pink as well, and there's pink ribbing, plain pink on the bottom as well. I'll be wearing this hopefully in the next episode, so you'll get to see how it is on, but I really like the way it's fitting so far. I know that I'm getting to the end of the time of year where I could actually wear this, because this is a pretty warm, fuzzy, cozy sweater, and it would have been great to have to wear for February, but we had a very warm February after having polar vortex and horribly cold temperatures all through January. We had a spring-like February. So anyway, I don't know how much wear I'm going to get out of this year, but I'm eager to finish it nevertheless, and I can wear it next year. So that's how I often do things. I will finish a project at the end of a season, and then I won't have to put it away until the next time the seasons change. So this is one of those, but I'm really enjoying. I like the color of it. The bright, hot pink is really cheery, and anyway, it's been a fun knit. I really have enjoyed it so far. So hopefully I will have finished it the next time that you and I meet. And I wanted to point out something that I keep forgetting about to mention, but over the years I've had many different types of knitting bags. I've collected knitting bags at various times. I've purchased them. I've tried to make them, and anyway, I still enjoy my knitting and project bags, but one thing that occurred to me recently was when I was cleaning out my stash and going through things like I do each winter, I found a knitting caddy that I purchased some time ago And I think I don't know if I bought it at Joann or Michael's or where I was, but my grandmother always used to use a knitting caddy very similar to this back in the 1960s. And so one day when she and I were shopping together many years ago, so this has been in the closet for quite a few years, but you know, she reminded me that a knitting caddy is really one of the most convenient things to knit, especially a sweater, because you can just close this up and take it with you, and it can stand on the ground next to you while you're knitting. It can hold your yarn, kind of like we now use yarn bowls. It can keep your yarn from getting dirty on the ground, but it can also hold up to a whole sweater's project. And this sweater is almost finished, so you can see it easily holds this whole sweater. And so I have returned to this knitting caddy and found it really, really a good functional bag, bag substitute. You can just grab it by the handles, carry it like a bag, and again, it sits straight on the floor. So I'm finding it very, very functional, and I'm enjoying using that. So I thought I would mention that in case any of you do happen to see them at any of the craft stores or on Etsy. I think if you're in the market for some kind of sweater holder or, you know, project holder, I think this is a really good idea to at least consider. I want to talk about one thing I've been doing, and it's actually been 2 weeks since we last filmed, not 3 weeks. I said 3 weeks earlier, but I've been doing a lot in the last couple of weeks. It felt like 3 weeks because I've been really, truly getting a lot done. And one thing I was doing on the days that we had a little bit better weather, I decided to take that divorce yarn from the last episode. If some of you may not know what I mean by divorce yarn, if you're not sure, you can go back and watch my previous episode. It's basically I messed up on plying some of the yarn I was spinning on the final skein or two that I was working on. I got so excited in a hurry to finish it that I ended up messing up the ply on it. So I was going to take that yarn, instead of just throwing it away. My friend Carolyn suggested that I use it to test dye some of the different dyes I am considering for the future cardigan I'm going to be making with my hand spun yarn, with the BFL yarn I've been spinning for quite some time. And I still have not quite finished spinning. I think I still need to go for another skein or two just to make sure I don't run short. But I'm going to be making a fairly cropped cardigan, so I'm thinking I'll need around 1,000 yards. And so what I did in the meantime, this last week, I decided to take advantage of the fairly nice weather, go outside and start test dyeing some of these smaller skeins that I harvested from that divorce yarn. And so this particular one here, and I wrote down on a little card what I did to get this exact, and these are all jacquard acid dyes. On this one, this is a combination of the teal and the navy jacquard dye, and I have the proportion written down if any of you are interested in finding out. But this was the one that is a navy combined with teal, and it's more navy than teal. I really liked this, and I also tried. Oh, here's a bigger skein of it, or bigger portion of it, because I really like this. This is one of my favorites, and it may end up being the one I go with. Is that what I just said? The teal and navy. I'm looking for the one that's more pure teal. I think it's this one. It's hard to tell because I'm in kind of darker light right now. I'm going to put a picture up of how the stuff looks out in the real afternoon light. But this one was teal. I don't know if you can see much of a difference with this darker lighting, but pure teal was a little bit greener and more obvious. If you get out in the sunlight, you can see it's a lot more obvious. I tried a purple because purple is one of my very favorite colors. Here's the purple. Maybe if I hold it more up in the light, you can see better. This is the teal. This has more of the green. This is pure teal. Unlike the navy. Here's the navy teal. Okay. And then I did this I really like. And I was surprised. It was crimson. But I felt it, really, it has a pretty color to it. I really like it. And then I tried lightening it up some using the crimson again, but not quite as much dye on the next test. And I came up with a very light cherry red. And this also is crimson, just watered down, not as much intensity on the dye. And then, and finally, I did a brown. I didn't care for the brown that much because it had a greeniness. I know that brown is composed of red and green, makes brown. But this, maybe it's because my dye is kind of older and has been sitting around for a couple of years, but the dye had more of a green cast. So in real life, this looks almost like an very dark olive green, rather than brown. So I don't think I'm going to be using this one. But right now, my choices, I'm still going to be thinking about it while I spin my last skein of yarn now. I'm on the last one. Oh, here's some more teal. This is the more teal. It kind of has more of a greeny cast. And then this is the navy. It's hard to tell the difference. But I am thinking I'm leaning more toward the navy teal. What do you guys think? I'm not really asking for a vote because I'll ultimately decide myself. But let me know in the comments what you think about this. This is the crimson. And the purple I also really liked. So those are the choices of the test colors that I've been working on. Well, I want to talk to you about a type of love story. Since February is the month of love, and we've just passed February, and we're down to March, but I wanted to tell you a story about love lost and found. And in this case, it's not a love story like with a couple, like we usually hear these romances where the couple dated in high school or college and they separated, got away from each other for many, many years, and then refound each other later in life. And so that's always been a romantic idea I really have resonated with. And so in this case, I had a piece of equipment, fiber equipment, which was my rigid heddle loom, my 24-inch rigid heddle loom. I had purchased it in 2011, back when I took a class at Yarn Barn with my friend Luann. I purchased a Kromsky harp and she purchased a Schacht. We both got the 24-inch with the stand. And we took a class with Jane Patrick. She was promoting her new book, at that time, the Weaver's Idea book. And this tells all about it's creative cloth on a rigid heddle loom. And if you're a rigid heddle weaver and you've never seen this book, check it out because it's really a valuable resource for all rigid heddle weavers. But that was what she was promoting, so she was teaching her class at the time. So I purchased that loom, and for 4 years, I was just very, very happy with the loom. I made many cloths, including prayer shawls, 2 baby blankets, some towels, several bags, and then I started weaving cloth on it for fabric to make garments. And I made ponchos, I made several tops with it. It was just very, very thrilled with the rigid heddle loom. And one of the main things I loved about it was how easy and fast it was to weave on, and it was just a simple loom, very little difficulty in learning it or using it, and I could quickly whip up projects on an impulse. If I needed a baby blanket for a coworker that weekend, I could spend the whole weekend and get the actual little baby blanket finished because it was so easy to warp. So I really love this loom, had it for many years, and used it regularly. In fact, I had it always set up in my craft studio at my old house. And so it was very easy to use, and I used it constantly. But then in 2015, my friend Luann took a weaving class on the floor loom, a 4-shaft floor loom, with Jeff Reynolds, who's a teacher in our guild. And she got me to go along with her and take the class. And Bob ended up buying me a Baby Wolf 4-shaft floor loom for a Christmas gift that year. And so in 2015, toward the end of the year, I decided, that I was going to advance, it's so-called advance in my weaving, and by going to a more, powerful and complex piece of equipment. So I pretty much put my rigid heddle loom away in the closet. Every now and then I would get it out to do a quick project, but it was kind of one of those out of sight, out of mind things. And so I kept determined that I was going to learn the regular floor loom, and that was going to replace my rigid heddle. So that's what I did for several years. And then one day, my friend Kay wanted to learn the rigid heddle loom. She'd been a long time, very talented knitter. She wanted to try her hand at rigid heddle weaving. So I loaned her my loom, thinking I really had very little use for it anymore, and she took a liking to it and offered to buy it from me. And that was fine. I was just sitting in my closet. So she had it for a few years. She also liked it and used it regularly, I think, or at least semi-regularly. And then last year, I started, getting this Little Loom magazine. And they would frequently talk about the rigid heddle looms in addition to other types of smaller looms. And I've really been wanting the simplicity of my old rigid heddle back. And so I mentioned to her last year, I said, Kay, if you ever decide you don't want to use the rigid heddle anymore or are tempted to sell it, please let me know, because I would like to buy it again. I'm thinking about buying a rigid heddle because I really miss it. Well, she said, okay, I'll keep that in mind. And then this December, a few months ago, she said, I'm going to be moving. She'd gotten married. She said, I'm going to be moving back to the West Coast. So if you still want to buy your rigid heddle back, I would be willing to sell it. And so the story ends with the fact that I was able to repurchase that loom almost 2 weeks ago. So it was right at the Valentine's almost weekend was when I ended up getting it back. And I've been so happy to have it back. It's just, I didn't realize how much I missed it till it's just like one of those reunion love stories. It's like, oh my gosh, I feel so happy having it back. It's really been, thrilling to me to have it back. And this weekend, I finally got around to taking it out on the deck in this beautiful weather and warping it again for the first time in several years. And it's just like I remembered. It's so easy to warp. And I decided that I need to name this loom. I had never named it before. And so I named it Penelope, which means weaver. Because of Penelope is why I took to weaving and fell in love with weaving. If it not for that rigid heddle loom, I don't think I would have ever felt comfortable with the complexity of floor looms and floor loom weaving if I hadn't gotten very familiar with it through this loom. So I'm thrilled to have her back. The first project I've started warping on her is going to be a spring table runner. And so I'm going to put in a clip here right now of me warping her. We'll do a time speed up so you can see how quick and easy it is. This whole threading process took only an hour to do a 16-inch table runner. And there's no way that would have been that quick on my floor loom. So here we go. So that's why I'm in love with Penelope. I think you can see how fun and fast and easy it is to warp a rigid heddle loom. And hopefully you'll be seeing other things from me in the future that I make on this loom. I want to talk about one more thing today. I understand that Iris Apfel, A-P-F-E-L is her name. I'm going to put a picture up of her. You'll know her immediately, or probably will, when you see her picture. She passed away yesterday, and I wanted to talk about her briefly and say, give a little tribute to her, because she was a very stylish and iconic. She lived to be 102. I didn't realize she was 102, but she was. And we often saw her with the big glasses, and she would appear in Women's Wear Daily and many other. She was a fashion icon, and she became a mini celebrity in later life. She was a geriatric celebrity, she called herself. But I wanted to bring up the fact that she had a very flamboyant sense of style and love of life that many of us would do well to emulate, I think. And her very name, Iris, reminds me of the spring and the brightness and cheeriness that her whole attitude and demeanor, everything about her was full of fun and fashion, and really, I really like her. At one time, my mom had purchased the book that featured her, and I borrowed the book from my mom and reviewed it, and really got a kick out of it. And so I think I'm going to either borrow it from my mom again or get it from the library. I'm not sure if my mom still has it or not. But my mom and I both enjoyed Iris's sense of fun and just, making fashion be about self-expression. And so you can look good at any age, and part of looking good as we age, I think, is the sense of fun that we get from it. And I know that's one of the goals I have in making my own clothing, because, and like this sweater put me in mind of the fun that I like to have when wearing clothing, and especially the clothing that I make for myself. So I just wanted to bring that up, that she did pass away. If any of you know who she is, I just wanted to bring that up. And if you don't, might be worth checking out your library, that book. I'm going to put the book up here in the corner so you could take a look at it. But she really was such a fun and inspiring person. And so my thoughts are with her and all the fun that she has brought to the world. I hope to be inspired by that and to continue as I age to experience that same level of joy of life. I think that's it for this time. Hopefully next time I'll have some more things to show you that'll be maybe completed. I don't have really a finished object this time, but I just wanted to check in because it's been a while. And my seasonal allergies are kind of kicking up, so I apologize for my rough voice. But I want to say, as I always do, love what you're making and wear what you make.